We stand for the invocation, remain standing for the first hymn. I'd like to welcome everybody for being here today. Great day, and be wherever you want to be. Please join me in an attitude of prayer. Dear Father God, we give thanks for this time here today. May we feel the true purpose of your love in our life here today. May we feel that with those of like mind and like purposes. May we feel harmony, peace, and hope within all. Amen. Next portion is a thought for today from the pastor. Speak about something that's come across my mind in my life, how I try to put it into a spiritual perspective. Yes, this last few days for me has been one of trying to not be frustrated with the small things in life. And for this morning was just a typical example. I burned my breakfast. Nothing wanted to get ready on time. It felt like I was walking through mud every step I took. And nothing worked right. You know? Nothing worked right.
You set your clocks right?
Oh yeah, that worked right. I set my clocks last night. But, you know, in those times, what I figured out keeps me from getting frustrated is the quality of what I appreciate that I have. If I truly appreciate the blessings that I have, the home that I have, the health that I have, if I'm remembering those things, then these momentary irritations don't really get me upset. I just move right through them. And that's what I did this morning. Just one thing right after the other. The computer didn't want to work right. I burned my breakfast while I was messing with my computer. It just went on and on and on. And then I get ready to run out the door. I'm running late. And I feed these feral cats, you know. And there's anywhere from 5 to 6 of them at every given time. And occasionally one that I don't see very often is wounded and comes around. I got to baby it and talk to it. I come out the door. I'd already fed them all. I come out the door, and here's this one that's a big cat. He probably goes 20 pounds, big old tomcat, just sitting there at the front door. Hardly ever gets around me, just looking at me. And I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me, and I look over where I put the food, and there's no food there. So he got there late this morning. So did I rush off and leave him standing there? No, I honored that opportunity. Put my stuff down, went back in the house, got a scoop of dry cat food and put it out for him. And you know, it's those kind of things. And I read an inspirational passage out of this book every morning, and I do it the last thing before I walk out the door. And, somebody said to me one time when I was running late and I stopped to read, "What are you doing that for? Why'd you read that first when you get up?" I said, "I read it last. So I'm going out the door, and I dedicate that time to having my mind put into that frame of thought as I leave the house. And if I'm too busy for God for a couple minutes before I walk out the door, there's something wrong." So it's these habits that you set up that take care of you most of the time. Some days when you have those days, you're just going to be livid, and then nothing's going to work right, and you're not going to do your spiritual stuff. But most of the time I find that if I'm, appreciating what is going well in my life and building on what's going well, rather than being upset about what I don't have or what I'm not getting, I always have an easier time, because you're always going to want something you don't have. You're always going to try to be getting something you don't have. It's human nature. That's the nature of who we are as a human being. Our instincts make us like that. So you have to temper that with the spiritual blessings, with the appreciation and gratitude of what you have in your life. Sometimes we just get caught up in what we don't have. Like I said, I've been trying real hard to get away from that. I mean, how can I be upset about something I don't have? I've got 2 houses. I own one outright, and the bank and me own the other one. I've got a beautiful Harley motorcycle that I can ride times a year like this. I've got a good relationship to a good relationship can get, I guess. And, you know, all my family's in good health. They got the flu, but they don't get flu shots either, so I guess that's their choice. I get flu shots and I don't get sick, and all of them are sick. And invariably every year I said, did you get a flu shot? No. Personal responsibility. So I guess I'm starting to ramble, but I thank you for listening. And, just on going with the energy today. Thanks for listening. Please stand for the next hymn.
Number 19, For the Beauty of the Earth. That's on the back page. Back page, number 19. For the beauty of the earth, for the beauty of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies, Lord of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. Of each hour of the day and of the night, hill and vale and tree and flower, sun and moon and stars of light, Lord of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of human love, brother, sister, parent, child, friends on earth and friends above, for all gentle thoughts and mild, Lord of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For thy church that evermore lifted holy hands above, offering up on every shore her pure sacrifice of love. Lord of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise.
Please be seated. Next portion is the healing portion. Another one of those things that just didn't seem to go like it was supposed to. We had a Marty step in as a musician today, which I'm thankful for. I get to do the meditation, which again I'm thankful for. Ash comes out with some kind of sinus congestion. And I get to do messages today too, because Carol Morse is out with stomach flu. So we're having a lot of changes and substitutions, but it's what's supposed to be. Please read with me together the prayer for spiritual healing on the back. I ask the great unseen healing force to remove all obstructions from my mind and body and to restore me to perfect health. I ask this in all sincerity and honesty, and I will do my part. I ask this great unseen healing force to help both present and absent ones who are in need of help and to restore them to perfect health. I put my trust in the love and power of God. I'd like you to just begin to find a comfortable place to sit, a way to sit, however you find most pleasing and most comfortable, no particular ritual or need, just however you can relax the most. Just begin to feel gentle rhythmic breath in your body, normal rhythmic breathing, the breath of life, of everyday life, a normal in-breath and out-breath that renews your life every moment, breath by breath. Just begin to feel the calm that that brings in your body, just paying attention to that normal physiological function. As you feel this gentling, this calming, putting your attention on your own body and its processes, you begin to feel a peace begin to grow within this calm. A peace that is aided by each breath also. Breath by breath, moment by moment. As you feel this peace, begin to feel it fill your body. You begin to feel again another level of calmness that begins to come over you. Breathing and gently. Putting your mind on yourself again. Feeling your mind's awareness of all that is around you and within you. As you begin to feel this awareness of all that is around you and within you, begin to feel a sense of light within. As you begin to feel this light within, you begin to feel the true nature of who you are. This is the eternal part of who you are. And as you feel this light of who you are, you begin to breathe it brighter and brighter, allowing this light that is you, the eternal you, to be all that you feel, all that you sense at this moment. Embracing this part of you that is the true you. As you feel this sense of peace and calm of the spirit you, begin to feel something at the edge of that awareness, reaching to the very edge of your knowing and awareness. And you begin to feel a sound there, sense a gentleness of sound that is always there. And you feel yourself being drawn towards this sound at the edge of your consciousness. Breathing it more, feeling yourself becoming more aware of this sound. And as you move at this sound, you begin to feel a new sense. And this is of God at rest. This is the true nature of God. As you begin to feel this nature of God at rest, you begin to feel the connectedness all of creation through this sense of God at rest. As you feel your connection to all of creation that is around you, you begin to sense yourself on the sea of life and creation. As you feel yourself on the sea of life and creation, you feel the movement of this energy of the sea. And you feel yourself being moved by a natural rhythmic motion onward, the tide of your life, the purpose of your life and existence. And you just allow yourself to drift with this current without resisting, without questioning. And as you feel yourself moving, you feel that which moves you again, God's presence in your life. As you feel this force of God moving you surely along the sea of life, you begin to feel the true love of God for you, the true care, and you feel a full trust and hope with this movement, knowing that it is sure, that it is true, and you allow this movement to just be with you, floating on this movement from God's mind to you. As you begin to feel yourself on this sea of life, you look back down the stream of life before you, and you see all those that have come before you in spirit, and you honor them for the commitment they've made for the choices they've made that have allowed you to be where you're at now. Some known, some unknown. But you see the length of the lineage that comes before you. And you honor that. As you feel the strength of that lineage before you, you now look to the now and feel a full appreciation for that which is going on in the now, and choose to honor the now as much as those that came before you did, to create the way forward for yourself and others that come after you. The smallest effort through the day, a kind word, a kind hand, a moment of caress and help. As you feel this sense within you of helping, each thought, each word creates your future. Each intention, each action creates your future. And as you now look up the sea of life, moved by this mind of God, this energy, you now see the opportunities before you. And take a moment to fully appreciate that which you're being moved towards, knowing that in this movement on the sea of life, there is no loss, there is no lack. It is sure and true as you move forward with this. You feel yourself being moved back to the mind of God and the love of God. Allow all other feelings of loss to fall away and just feel this movement in your life. This movement is there every moment of every day, underneath all other things of the consciousness. This hand of spirit, this love of spirit. And you just allow yourself to be fully in touch with that now. No purpose, no need, just feeling the presence of that touch of Spirit and God in your life, fully embodied in this moment of silence, embracing it, thanking those in spirit that are there to help you, taking a moment to connect your mind to those on the higher side, those spiritual beings that have never been on the earth, that are here to work with you. And you feel that love from them, that care, and you allow yourself to be moved by that trust and hope. Thanking them for their time, thanking them for their love, breathing in that true presence of the Spirit, feeling it resonate through every atom of your body as you drift on the sea of life. And into the sea of life, we feel ourselves in the here and now. And in the here and now, we look around in the immediacy of now and bring someone into our consciousness that may need a healing or a kind word that we have been unable to help before this. We see them before us. We say what we wanted to say and haven't been able to. We think healing thoughts to this person and allow us to know that it is received. This is not imaginary. This is real. This is true. As we feel that being received by the person, we feel the lightness of that relationship with the person, connecting momentarily, whether it's here or hereafter with that person. If it's someone that's in the hereafter, know that they are as alive now as they were when they were here. As you feel this continuity of life between the here and the hereafter, you begin to feel fulfilled with the cycle of true life, not just physical life. You feel yourself connected to that cycle physical to spirit, spirit to physical, the unending flow back and forth. Realizing that there is no barrier other than our own consciousness. Allowing the energy of this flow to be felt and known. As we breathe that in, we begin to find ourselves gently feeling more than we were when we started, more aware of that which the eternal us is, bringing back gently to the consciousness of the here and now, knowing that we do not sever this awareness, slowly beginning to reintegrate the senses, allowing the higher mindedness to stay with us as we reintegrate the senses of consciousness, breathing gently, allowing this higher sight to be a conscious part of our life as we come back, gently, slowly reintegrating the senses, allowing the higher consciousness to stay present with us and known to our conscious mind. Coming back little by little, breath by breath, until we feel the room around us, hear the noise of the fans, hear the music as the music, breathing rhythmically until you feel the awareness of the room full around you, gently beginning to find consciousness again, but holding the higher awareness as the consciousness comes back. Taking a moment to see the room a little brighter than it was when we started. Life a little brighter than it was when we started. Just finding your way here in your own time. Portion with an inspirational reading. Gently breathe in God's Spirit, that Spirit which, if not poured out by selfishness, will enable you to do good works. This means rather that God will be enabled to do good works through you. You can become a channel for God's Spirit to flow through you and into the lives of others. The works that you can do will only be limited by your spiritual development. Let your spirit be in harmony with God's Spirit, and there is no limit to what you can do. Please stand for the next thing.
That came out backwards. Let's sing hymn number 17, Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace. Next to the last page.
I once
service is an inspirational lecture. Today our lecturer is Reverend Bill Morse. Bill is a minister ordained in hands-on healing and holds a Doctor of Ministry degree. He studied many modalities of healing, understands spiritualism, natural law, quantum physics, and studied prophetic and mystical Christianity. He's also currently doing workshops on past life regression, which are getting quite popular. I'm sure that we're going to have a very good time hearing Reverend Bill Morse today. Please welcome Reverend Bill Morse.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Everybody braved the traffic?
Yes.
I was going to say everybody remember to change their clocks, but now cell phones change it for you, so you don't need to do that. I really love the hymn that we just sang, Amazing Grace, and I especially like it. It was written by a fellow named John Newton. He was a captain of a slave ship, and he wrote that song during a ferocious storm. And that was, for him, a time of awakening. He later became a minister, preached against slavery for the rest of his life. But I always think of that when I hear that hymn. I want to start today by talking about sacred texts. The major religions of the world have what I refer to as foundational sacred texts. The Bible, the Torah, the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran. These are all texts that create the foundation for these major religions. There are some challenges in reading these texts, and I'll use the Bible as an example because my original upbringing was Christianity. If you look at the New Testament, which is the sacred text that Christianity is based on, there's really two things that challenge us in reading the New Testament. And the first one is translation. Most of the New Testament was either written in Aramaic or Hebrew. Aramaic gets challenging because Aramaic, except for a very, very small group of people, is really a language that's no longer used. The portions of the New Testament that were created in Aramaic went through Latin, Greek, before they were translated into English. And that was a cause of a loss of a lot of meaning. One of the words that we use is love. Just to give you an example, as the word love goes through Greek, there are actually 3 different words that mean love in Greek. So that is a challenge to get the original translation, because even if you faithfully translate a text, a lot of times the meaning has to do with personal intention when it was written and the context of how it was written. Just to give you an example, my son majored in Russian, and many years ago there was a bridge that collapsed on a major interstate in Minneapolis. And there was a series of photographs taken of that incident, and it was taken by a Russian journalist. And the text connected to those was written in Russian, and I sent an email off to him. I said, "Hey, Matt, translate this for me, if you will." And he'd been over to Russia several times studying Russian, and he just started with the first sentence, and he said, "Well, this could mean 2 or 3 different things based upon, where the author was coming from." So translation is one of the first challenges we have, and the second one is interpretation. And interpretation is really where the difficulty comes in, and that's, I believe, why we have so many different divisions within Christianity, is the interpretation of the New Testament. So even these foundational sacred texts that we have are open to discussion and differences of interpretation. We also have what I'm going to refer to as modern day sacred texts. And I'll use two as an example. One is A Course in Miracles, and the other one is a series of 3 books called Conversations with God. A Course in Miracles was a text that was actually downloaded, if you will. There were 2 doctors that were working in New York City. They never got along. They were atheists. They were constantly at each other's throats, sometimes literally, most of the time figuratively. And they met one day and they said, we have to find a way to end this. We have to find a way to join together and work past our differences. And shortly thereafter, the lady, one was a gentleman, one was a lady, the lady started to receive information in her dreams. And she would come in and she would dictate this to the gentleman, and he would write it down. Then she would have another dream that would correct some of what was written down. And through a process, I think it took 7 years for this work to come out. But the Course in Miracles is really a lifelong study. It's a lifelong study, but it's a year-long discipline in how to differentiate between the real and the unreal. The real being what is actually going on in the divine, and the unreal is what we experience here on earth. The Course in Miracles is believed by many Course in Miracles scholars. I'm certainly not a scholar, but I really enjoy reading it. I see it as Jesus dictating a correction to us on how we should interpret the Bible. And it's quite profound. The other is Conversations with God. It was written by Neil Donald Walsh. He was literally at the bottom of the barrel. He'd hit his low. He was out of his house. He was living in a tent in a park. And he was just about ready to give up everything. And he decided to write a series of questions on a legal pad, questions that he had for God. And he found that God answered him by taking over his body and writing the answers on that sheet of paper. In Spiritualism, that's a form of physical mediumship. It's called automatic writing. From this, he created these 3 books that comprise the series known as Conversations with God. And it is a plain language, plain text, question and answer. Here are my concerns. This is what I believe, and the corrections back from God of the truth according to Him with a capital H. It's just like Course in Miracles. If you read it and you choose to believe it, that's fine. If you read it and choose not to believe it, that's fine also. But I seem to resonate extremely strongly with the Conversations with God. And that brings me to the main part of this talk, which I'll refer to as the 3 eternal truths of life, or the 3 immutable truths of life. And if you believe these and if you understand these, it really brings you to a place of quiet understanding or acceptance, if you will. And those 3 are, there's no such thing as death, everybody goes to heaven, and nothing happens to anyone without the desire or consent of their soul. And I like to address those one at a time. No such thing as death, that's pretty easy to wrap your brain around. The vast majority of the world's religions either believe in reincarnation or eternal life. There are, depending upon the religions that you look into, there are variations of those acceptances, but that's pretty much a universal. That's a pretty much a universal belief. That's been validated to me through my work with past life regression, witnessing not only my own past lives, but being witness to other people experiencing their past lives through regression. Spiritualism, which if you look at religions is probably the one that I resonate closest with. The religion of spiritualism has a set of principles. Two of these principles say, we affirm that the existence and personal identity of the individual continue after the change called death. We affirm that communication with the so-called dead is a fact scientifically proven by the phenomenon of spiritualism. I'll digress a little bit here and talk about two concepts that I've been asked about quite a bit. One is spirituality and the other is religion. Spirituality, I see, is our personal connection with God. That was beautifully described, and you had an opportunity to experience that through the meditation today. And thank you, Steve, for that. That was a beautiful meditation. Religion, on the other hand, answers our need for rules and laws and an explanation. Because as humans, our conscious mind, our ego mind, is constantly looking for specific rules and guidance on how to conduct ourselves. And that's, I believe, how and why we have religion. I jokingly refer to it as a bunch of guys sitting around a table writing down rules is religion. Spirituality, on the other hand, all you have to do is look inward to see that connection that we all have with God, or that part of God that we all are. And quoting from Conversations with God, there is no death. Life goes on forever and ever. Life is, we simply change form. After we change form, consequences cease to exist. There is just knowing. Consequences are an element of relativity. They have no place in the absolute because they depend on linear time and sequential events. These do not exist in the realm of the absolute. In that realm, there is naught but peace and joy and love. In that realm, you will know at last the good news that your devil does not exist, that you are who you always thought you were, goodness and love. Your idea that you might be something else has come from an insane outer world causing you to act insanely. An outer world of judgment and condemnation. Others have judged you, and from their judgments, you have judged yourself. Now you want God to judge you, and He will not do it. And because you cannot understand a God who will not act as humans would, you are lost. The second truth, everyone goes to heaven. This is probably one of the most difficult concepts that I had to accept in my studies. And that is, there is no such thing as right or wrong. There just is. What we perceive as bad happens to us for a reason. It's there to guide us in a particular direction. It's there to help us experience something we need to experience in this life. I believe that before we come into this life, we have what I'll call a committee meeting. It's a committee meeting with the other people in your soul group, and it's chaired by your guardian angel, your gatekeeper, the El Jefe of your spirit guides. And there's a discussion that takes place on the soul level as to what you need to continue your spiritual growth. Because that's why we're here, is to grow spiritually, to experience things that we need to experience to grow at the soul level. One of the most dramatic explanations of this was written by a fellow by the name of Robert Schwartz. I first met him when he came to Casadega probably 10 years ago. At the time he had written his first book. It was self-published. He was selling it out of the trunk of his car. It has since been taken up by a major publishing house, and he's come out with a second book. But it's a series of case studies dealing with 7 or 8 different people and why they experienced what they experienced when they came into this life. He used mediums, he used channels, and he went back to that pre-birth meeting as an explanation of why these people experienced what they did. And it's really an eye-opener when you see what we would clearly look at and interpret and judge to be a tragedy was really a foundational moment in their life that drove them in a particular direction. And the people that caused that to happen came into their life with the specific intention of helping them experience that. And this could be somebody who said a kind word on the way past on the street. It could be somebody who hired them for a particular job. It could be somebody who fired them from a particular job. It could be someone who murdered a loved one in their life. So it could be something that we would judge to be good or bad. But it was there for a reason, and it caused them to grow spiritually. We have what we consider to be acceptable and unacceptable behavior. That's why we have laws. You know, we write laws because we want to establish in writing what we judge to be acceptable and unacceptable behavior. But acceptable behavior and unacceptable behavior varies with time, and it varies with geography. There was a time when tying someone to a stake and lighting them on fire was acceptable, was considered to be quite acceptable. Nowadays, not so much. We kind of frown on that. But even in today's world, there are countries and cultures where it is acceptable and expected for a man to marry several different women. Here in the United States, not so much. That's kind of frowned upon. So those are just 2 examples of being acceptable and unacceptable, varying depending upon the time and the place that you exist. There's a story, it comes from the Conversations with God, where the little soul went to God and he said, I want to incarnate as a human being, and I want to emulate one of your characteristics. And God said, which one is that? And he said, well, I want to embody the concept of forgiveness. And God said, forgiveness is not one of my aspects. And the little soul was taken back, and he said, forgiveness is not one of your aspects? And he said, no. He says, forgiveness is not part of me. And the soul said, why is that? And God said, because there's nothing to forgive. There is no bad, there is no good, everything just is. And it is the way it's supposed to be. So if you believe that, then you have to also understand that there is no such thing as forgiveness, because there is nothing to forgive. And the little soul said, well, I'm really hung up on this concept of forgiveness. I want to do that. I want to incarnate, and I want to exercise forgiveness. And God said, well, if you do that, you have to have someone offend or wrong you in order to be able to forgive them. And another soul stood up and said, I'll help you. I'll help you. I will incarnate, and I will act against you to give you the opportunity to forgive me for doing that. But I will only do that under one condition. And that is when we come back here to the spirit side of life, that you recognize that I did that out of love for your spiritual growth, for your experience in that life, and that we both revisit and restate that we love each other the same as we do now. So they agreed, and that's what they did. Probably the the two greatest examples that I can think of what we judge to be good and bad are Jesus and Hitler. And both people were there for a reason. And I believe both people were there so we can look at a person like Jesus or Buddha or Krishna and we can say, I want to emulate them. I want to be like them. I want to act like they acted. And we can look at a person like Hitler, Mussolini, Saddam Hussein, and we can say, I don't want to act like them. I don't want to be like them. I want to work in a different direction. So I believe that's why we're presented with people like that. Another quote from Conversations with God. In your reality, good cannot exist without bad. This is in your reality. Good cannot exist without bad, so you believe it must be the same in mine. Yet I tell you this, there is no bad where I am, and there is no evil. There is only the all of everything, the oneness and the awareness, the experience of that. Mine is the realm of the absolute, where one thing does not exist in relation to another, but quite independent from anything. Mine is the place where all there is love. And then the last of the three, nothing happens to anyone without the desire or consent of their soul. And this goes back to the subject that I was mentioning before about the pre-birth conference, that committee meeting that decides how you're going to experience life, what you're going to learn when you come in this life. It could be you're here, you've completed the cycle, and you're just here to help someone else. But everything happens because we need to experience that to grow in the direction that we need to grow. So I tell you this, don't fear death, because death doesn't exist. We know in spiritualism that the soul continues. The soul has been, your soul has been here since before there was time, and it will be here long after we stop measuring time as we know it. Live life to the fullest. Embrace what you experience. Appreciate it for what it is. Know that everything is there for a reason. Know that you are experiencing things you need to experience because of your own spiritual growth. Another one of the principles of spiritualism, we believe that the highest morality is contained in the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I think that's probably the greatest yardstick, the best yardstick you can have into how to act. Treat other people the way you want to be treated. Treat everyone with love and respect. And I'd like to read one last quote here. Yet what if I told you that what you call death is the greatest thing that could happen to anyone? What then? You think that life on earth is better than life in heaven. I tell you this, at the moment of your death, you will realize the greatest freedom, the greatest peace, the greatest joy, and the greatest love you have ever known.